You're tuned into the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Zeno Pucks. Here are your hosts, Andy and Brian Matusi.
Welcome back to the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast presented by Zeno Pucks. Brian and Andy here with you guys today. We're a couple games into the Stanley Cup Final, and due to our own real-life constraints, doing a show after every game is just not plausible. So we're really going to be challenged with our show scheduling this upcoming week, as I'm going to be going out of town next weekend. And then when I get back, I'm going to be traveling for work as soon as I get back. So I might be having to do this from my phone. I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out. We'll make it work. As the three games coming up this week, technically could decide the result of the final. I doubt it'll end in 5, but it's not impossible given where we're at. So we'll get to that towards the end of the show. Just a couple, as we like to do, catch up on things happening in and around the game before we get to the playoff talk. So we'll start with the big one, obviously. Pete DeBoer fired by the Dallas Stars. He is no longer the team's head coach. It kind of seemed like it was an inevitability after the way that last game went against the Oilers, and obviously with the fallout in the media after with his comments about Jake Ottinger's play. And so you just had a feeling it may have been coming. I believe in the last show, actually, I might have said it seemed like they were going to be sticking with them, but it is funny. Somebody pointed out, I forget who it was. I wish I could give it credit. It might have been either the Steve Dangle podcast or Real Kipper and Bourne. But somebody said that it is funny that the Stars waited till every head coaching vacancy was filled to fire him, because the Bruins announced, we'll get to Marco Sturm in a second, but the Bruins announced that they hired Marco Sturm, and that was the last coaching vacancy. And then I think the next day, or it was either the next day or 2 days later, DeBoer gets fired. So I thought that was kind of funny, and I'm sure that wasn't by accident. There's just no way. But regardless, the Stars will look to hit the reset button. Obviously, the team's still talented, and I think the tough thing for them now is figuring out a good head coach. There are a couple options out there still. I still think David Carl, the head coach at the University of Denver, he'd be a good fit there. He'd be a great fit. He knows how to coach talented players. I think the situation there would be much better than what he was offered in Chicago. I mean, I know Chicago kind of planned to make him their guy, and we're going to pay him a lot, and then he kind of backed out of that. But I think this could be a situation for them where they could go get the big fish, and they already have a talented on-ice group. So it's a very attractive offer. It's good weather state, so on and so forth. Another guy that I think would be a great candidate for this, because the Preds don't seem interested in bringing him on, would be Carl Taylor, the head coach of the Milwaukee Admirals. We talked about it last year during the Admirals 20-game win streak or whatever that was. That it seemed like the time was coming for him to move up to the NHL. And I really thought after the way the Preds season went that they were going to clean house. Brunette would be gone. They'd move a couple players and then bring up Carl Taylor to be the head coach of the Preds. They have not decided to do that, which, Barry Trotz has been really good this season about not, being a good GM. So, but yeah, Carl Taylor, I think, would be a perfect candidate there. But as far as the fall from DeBoer, were you surprised? What was your thoughts when you first saw that news, other than that you were ecstatic because that was your response to my text message?
Yeah, well, I knew it was coming. And honestly, okay, so obviously I wasn't surprised by it. But I just want to say that I think had he not thrown Ottinger under the bus to the media, he might still have a job, in all seriousness. I think that was the nail in the coffin. I think you get away with pulling him, but oh man, that was just the toughest look. So not only was I not surprised, it's well deserved. So the big question here, and you kind of already just touched on it, is where do you go from here if you're Dallas? So,
yeah, exactly.
I like the Carl Taylor idea, but I've been wanting him to have a job in the NHL since last year. So I don't know. I'm interested to see where Dallas tries to go with this, but I'm glad that Pete DeBoer's definitely not getting an NHL head coaching job anytime soon. I can tell you that.
I think the opposite. I think the first coach that gets fired next NHL season, I think DeBoer would probably be his replacement. Teams see that he's a good enough coach to get you the conference final. Obviously, still doesn't want a Stanley Cup. He's been to a Stanley Cup final or two. I think he was a head coach of the Devils when they lost to LA as well. He's been to a couple of those. So, I mean, he's a good enough coach to get you there. But, boy, if you have a franchise goalie, he's going to hurt their feelings. But regardless, I think the smart move for Dallas would be to go after David Carl. I don't know if there's any interest on his end, but you got to at least approach him and say, hey, what do you think about coming to a team that's already got a roster that's ready to win? You just need to come in and piece the puzzle together. So we'll see what happens for the Stars, but I quite enjoy the fallout from that the other day. So let's move on here, though, now that we're done with that. The NCAA, we'll just mention this quickly. It's nothing crazy. It's kind of already happening, but the NCAA gets approval to start paying student athletes directly. So obviously players recently have been able to earn money through the NIL system, the name, image, and likeness. So they've already been being able to get played, but now the schools have the ability to pay these players directly. So for hockey, that could be a good thing. It may be a good thing, maybe a bad thing. We'll see. Some of the more prominent schools you think of. I'd be remiss to not say Western Michigan. They just won the national championship. But you think of like a Michigan State, a Wisconsin, Minnesota, some of these schools that have big hockey programs. This may work to their advantage a little more than schools who maybe don't have the money. But it'll be interesting. It's probably been a long time coming. A lot of these schools forever have been getting free players. I mean, yes, the schools usually pay for the scholarships and stuff like that, and that's all well and good. But now the kids can actually start making money on top of getting their free education. So, kind of like this for the players, and the schools make their ass in tuition money so they can fucking pay these guys.
See, I'm on the opposite side of this from you.
Oh, boomer! You're a boomer. Okay, boomer.
No, I don't think they should get played. I mean, that's the point of playing in college, is to work to get to where you get paid. That's literally the whole point of college sports. These guys are playing their asses off, trying to make the pros so they can make a living off of this. I don't think they should be getting paid for it in college. And I not just for hockey, that's all college sports. So now I will step aside here and also say that they, make money off endorsements. I'm fine with that. But as far as salaries go, no, I don't think college athletes should be receiving salaries.
The endorsements thing, I definitely will agree on, is that they should be able to use it. Look, if these companies are going to get to advertise off these guys, they should get to make money off it.
100%.
I am the opposite end of the spectrum, though. Truly, I believe when you look at the reality of all sports, this isn't just hockey. The reality is that the chance of any of these college athletes becoming pro players is a razor thin margin. I mean, it's already. The odds of them getting to where they are already was almost impossible. So to deny them being paid before they're pro, I think is unfair, because the chances that they're going to go pro are still almost slim to none. I mean, other than the top guys, a lot of these guys are never. This is their final stop before they enter the working world. I think the chance to make a little bit of extra cash, even if they're not going to go pro, I think it's great. I'm all for it. So I think we're on way ends of the spectrum with this. Because I think these guys should have the chance to get a somewhat sizable payday before they have to enter the real world. Because again, the reality is most of them aren't going pro.
Yeah, and I agree. I do agree with you. Most of them aren't going pro, and I think it's safe to say that anybody who plays any sport ever in their life more than likely is not going pro. And that's not to say you suck. That's just to say that's how hard it is to make the pros in any sport. But for me, it's just you make a salary off it when you make the pros. If you make the pros, if you don't, then you're just like the rest of us. That's how I look at it. I can certainly see your point that you're making. So I don't want you to think that I think your idea is stupid. I'm just saying I don't agree with it.
All right, fair enough. All right, let's move on to Jesper Fast of the Carolina Hurricanes is going to retire at the age of 33. He had a neck surgery prior to this year. It kept him out the whole season. I didn't read too much into the specifics of it, but essentially it just seems like his best course of action is to not play hockey anymore and preserve his body. He's only 33. I mean, he's the same age as you, so I mean, if you were in a situation where you had a neck problem, I'm sure you would do anything you can to preserve your own life and well-being over a game. So it's a good player. It sucks to see anybody have to retire due to injury, but it is what it is, and I'm glad he's just making the right choice for himself, and I assume his family.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, it always sucks to see good careers come to an end, but there's a time and a place for this, and there's only one person who knows the right decision, and it's him. So,
yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, it's selfish of us to want him to continue.
Yeah. So, all right, let's move over to coaching here. We have the final 2 coaching vacancies have been filled since our last show. So Dan Muse will take over as the head coach of the Penguins. This was met with a huge amount of mixed reactions. I mean, some people love the fresh outlook, a guy who's never been a head coach in the NHL. I know he spent some time as an assistant with a couple NHL organizations. I believe he coached in college as well. But given what he's walking into in Pittsburgh, I mean, we're at the end of the Crosby Malkin era. This is going to be Evgeny Malkin's final season in the NHL, what it sounds like. And Sid's only got a year or 2 left on his deal. And Chris Letang, if he can even fucking stay healthy, only has a couple years left. So, we're nearing the end, and I think what Kyle Dubas is hoping for here, I've said verbatim before, I don't think Kyle Dubas knows what he's doing. And my guess with this is that he's thinking, okay, we're looking at a new regime, new era in Pittsburgh. We need a guy with a fresh set of eyes on this who hasn't been in the show. And I am a fan of bringing in new blood for the coaching ring. I mean, a lot of times as hockey fans, we complain that it's the same guys over and over and over again. And, for about the last 7-8 years, about 7 of the last 10 years, it really felt like that. From like 2015 to like 2022, it just felt like the same recycled guys, and we're really starting to usher in an era of the next wave of head coaches. It's not waiting to see where Laviolette and Tortorella are going every time they get fired, or Alain Vigneault, or God, who's another? Well, Bill Peters is a bad example because he was he's not a coach for a different reason, but yeah. Or who was the buddy in LA that everyone hated? Daryl Sutter.
Yeah, Daryl Sutter for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm glad to see this new wave of coaches, but again, and I think this was Nick Kyprios that said this, but this guy's going to go into Pittsburgh as the coach, and he's going to have to make himself top dog with Sid already there. That's a tall task. I don't remember if it was Kipper that said it. I shouldn't have been so specific, but yeah, he's going to have to go in there and kind of stake his claim in the ground that, hey, this is his team to run, and these guys need to buy into what he's doing, because otherwise he'll just get pushed around. So I still am of the belief that Kyle Dubas has no fucking clue what he's doing, but I can appreciate trying to, again, usher in a new era of Penguins hockey. I think the next step for Kyle Dubas should probably be figuring out why the fuck he signed Ryan Grace to that contract, which I'm going to pick on him for until it's expired and even after it's expired. But for the Penguins, again, a new era is coming sooner than later. You can't stop the march of time. So I don't know much about this guy's coaching style, so I guess it remains to be seen. I mean, who knows? We could be talking here next year like, oh boy, the Penguins had a great run of the conference final. You just never know. So we'll see.
Well, there's 2 things I want to say. First of all, I could not agree more that Kyle Dubas doesn't know what he's doing. I've been saying that for several years. Excuse me. With that being said, if you're Dan Muse, you brought up a good point about, you have to come in as this new guy with Sid already there and prove that this is your show to run. But if he's a good coach with any common sense, you use Sid to your advantage to help make that happen. Because Sid's one of the best leaders in the NHL. I don't care how people feel about Sidney Crosby. The guy's got the reputation he has for a reason.
Yep, definitely.
But I say if you're Dan Muse, you use Sidney Crosby to your advantage and taking control of that locker room, because you don't want to come in and be a tyrant, but you want to earn their respect. And I think that's more easily done if you use Sidney Crosby to help you, because just about anything Sid does, that team is going to follow. So I think you got to use Sid to your advantage here. And I'm also all for giving new blood a chance. And we'll see how it goes for him. I think this would be a very silly move if this team was, like a cup contender right now. I think it'd be a terrible idea. But being that this is essentially going to be a whole new Penguins organization here within the next couple of years, I don't hate this move, if I'm being honest. I think a new coach giving a guy a chance in the NHL, as a head coach, I should say. I think this is a good move in the long run, but I'm not going to give Kyle Dubas any credit for anything because he doesn't know what he's doing. So anyway, here we are.
See. And I think you're right. If they were a contender, this isn't where you want to go. But I mean, at this point, it can't get any worse. The last 2 seasons at Pittsburgh have been a nightmare for Penguins fans. So yeah, it's a mess. Again, trying anything at this point couldn't hurt. I mean, Kyle Dubas has done everything but the right thing so far. So we'll see what happens. Another new blood coach, Marco Sturm, head coach of the Bruins officially now. Bruins fans, of course, will remember that he was part of the infamous trade that sent Joe Thornton to the Sharks. But Sturm had a couple really good seasons with the Bruins. Probably his most famous moment is scoring the Winter Classic overtime winner against Philly in 2010. But Sturm, again, it gets a chance to come back home to Boston, or not home to as far as where he's from, but he'll have a chance to, again, be with an organization he's very familiar with. So we'll see how it goes there with the Bruins. I mean, there's a lot of turnover they need. I think the Bruins really need to try and look at doing maybe some big game hunting because, again, you look at them down the middle, and they are just the least scary team. I always forget Elias Lindholm even plays there because he's so bad. And then you have Zaka, and again, they just don't have anything down the middle. I know they get Middlestad too, but it looks like the ceiling for him is a little lower than we expected, which is okay. I mean, he can be at his best, he can be a second line center, but they don't have the top guy. They need somebody who's got the gas to play with David Pastrnak, and they don't have it right now. So I know Sturm's coaching style will probably be a refreshing look for the Bruins, and I know they're going to get Lindholm they're going to get Hampus Lindholm back from injury as well as Charlie McAvoy. And again, a fresh full season of Jeremy Swayman will help. But there's still work to be done with the Bruins. I don't hate the hire. I actually kind of like it, bringing in a guy who understands Boston. I think it's very important when you're going to an organization of that prestige. I don't know if the right word is the right word, but an organization of that caliber where the city is just brutal to play in if you don't know what you're getting into. Kind of like a New York or a Toronto or a Montreal. You need somebody that can handle the big stage like that. So I think this is a good hire. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where the Bruins go from here because there's still a lot of work to be done.
I'm pretty sure too, if my math is correct, him and Mao played on the Bruins together.
They would have, almost
him, Mao, and Andrew Alberts all played together.
So that's
pretty cool. And as far as needing help down the middle too, not even down the middle, they just need help in general. There's a guy coming up this off season. He's going to be a UFA. His name is Brad Marchand. I think he'd be really good in Boston. I think the Bruins could use a guy like him. So
I don't think there's a chance he resigns with the Bruins.
I don't know. There is no chance. I don't even think there's a chance he resigns in Florida. But if you had to pick one, I would say he probably would resign in Florida if he was going to at this point.
No, I think he's
going home.
Sounds to say I think he's going to go to a Canadian team. I think he wants to go back and be in Canada.
I think he's going to go to Toronto.
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. They'll probably throw a lot of money at him now that they're not going to pay Marner. I mean, they have the options. I know they're going to probably throw the moon and the stars at Sam Bennett too, which, I mean, I think the Panthers might be able to ring him in, especially if they can win the Stanley Cup here. But I think regardless, I think Marchand was with them for this run. He wanted to go win a cup. And I think, especially if he can get it, I think there's no chance he doesn't try and go back home to Canada.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, I say, especially if you win the cup, why not go play for your hometown or your hometown team, your favorite team as a kid before you retire? I would do the same thing. So, yeah, well, and honestly, I know it's weird to say because you think of him, and when you think of the Bruins, he's the first guy you pretty much think of. But it just doesn't seem like there's a path for him to go back to the Bruins. They need to usher in a new era of Bruins hockey. It's almost certain that one of David Pastrnak or Charlie McAvoy is going to be the next captain of the Bruins. And if Marchand were to go back there, it would only make sense that he's the captain. I just think bringing him back at this stage in his career, not that he wouldn't be effective, he'd be a perfect fit. I mean, he's the ultimate Bruin for sure. He would be a perfect fit, but at this stage, if they're going to be any kind of serious about, again, we just talked about the Penguins bringing in a new era of hockey in the next couple of years. The Bruins are already there. And I think bringing in a guy from the old guard doesn't really have that effect. Now, you can make the argument Pastrnak and McAvoy are the old guard, but they're in the prime of their careers too. They're as good as they're ever going to be. They can help this new talent develop. They're the kind of guys you want leading a charge like this. So it's a little bit different. These guys are in their late 20s. McAvoy's 20.
27 or 28, and Pasternak is 29. So, I mean, these guys are in the prime of their careers. This is the best time for them to usher in a new era. And not that Marchand wouldn't be a perfect fit on this team as it is, but I just think it's not the right fit as far as the long-term growth of this team, which sounds weird to say. And maybe it's just Galaxy branding it, but it just doesn't seem like it'd be the fit that it used to be.
Well, this is supposed to be about Marco Sturm too, but I just want to say one more thing because this isn't supposed to be a Brad Marchand segment. But if you look at the way he's performed, especially in the Stanley Cup Final, he's proved that he's still got what it takes to play in the NHL at a very efficient level. And
I don't think that was ever in question. I'm
just saying.
If somebody questioned that, they're an idiot.
No, I'm just saying. I think whatever team throws money at him and he takes it, they're going to be lucky to have him. Any team would be lucky to have Brad Marchand.
Definitely.
But I digress.
Yeah. So as far as Sturm, I think it's a perfect move because, again, this is a guy who's played in Boston. He understands the city. He understands the expectation. He himself has played with some very talented players. So I don't think, and he wasn't a bad player in his own right. And then until Leon Draisaitl came into the league, he was the highest scoring German player of all time. So
correct.
Which Draisaitl is like more than doubled his career point total by now, though. But yeah, so he's a player. He was a good player. He understands what it takes to be in Boston. I think it'll be a fit. But again, there's just a lot of work to do with the Bruins and the fact that Sweeney's still around. We'll see. It's going to be messy there for a little bit, but hopefully they get it figured out. Or not if you hate the Bruins. Maybe they don't figure it out and you'll be all right with that. All right, a couple contract extensions, these were all extensions. So Yanni Gourde, Tampa Bay, 6 years, $2.33 million per year. This is essentially hey, thanks for being part of all of our best years. We're going to give you like $15 million to take into retirement.
Pretty much
$14 million. I mean, this is going to take him. He may even retire before this contract ends. He's 32 or 33 now, so this will take him into his late 30s. If he plays all those years, great. It's a cheap cap hit. If he retires ahead of time, well, he's still going to get his money, and the team doesn't have to suffer in the salary cap too much. So, all things considered, good deal for Gordy. Again, he was a huge part of their depth in their Stanley Cup runs and all the best years that they had recently in Tampa Bay. So he gets rewarded for that with a nice chunk of change to take him into retirement.
Well, I just want to say real quick, this doesn't need too much insight from me, but I just want to say, I mean, as far as those cup run teams go, when I think Tampa Bay Lightning, he's one of the first faces that comes to mind. So, yeah, like you said, he was instrumental in those cup runs. So I think you're right. It's a good cap. It's a cap friendly deal for a guy who's either going to perform great into his late 30s or he's going to retire early and you're still fine. Yep.
Another good contract extension I like. Noah Cates, 4 years, $4 million per year in Philly. This is a low risk deal for the team and a good bridge deal for Noah, who has a chance to take another step forward and really, prove that he's going to be a top six player in the NHL. It's perfect for both ends. It's going to get him, again, this is enough money for him to retire off of already, but it's going to, again, give him a chance to prove himself with the cap going up significantly in the next couple seasons. Noah Cates will have a chance. And again, under a coach like Rick Tocchet, I could see him really flourishing. I've been talking about this for a little bit. I think there's a chance there for him to prove his worth. But if for whatever reason it doesn't work out, it's not a crippling deal. It's not going to turn the city against him. It's not going to constrain the team's salary cap. So this is a good deal for both sides. And I think the Flyers if for now it's going to look really good, but I think in a couple of years, the Flyers might really have to open up the wallet for this guy.
I think so too. But for right now, it's a good low risk move. So yeah. Especially, with a new coach coming to town, especially a guy like Rick Tocchet, which everyone's going to love. I think this is a good move overall for the organization. So we'll see how it plays out for them. And like you said, a couple of years, they're probably going to have to open the wallet for him. So,
yeah. Speaking of opening the wallet, I don't know who told Chris McFarland that he should give Brock Nelson $7.5 million a year for the next 3 seasons, but. And listen, I've already heard the debates on all the other talking head shows. Well, the salary cap's going up. This isn't a ton of money in the grand scheme of things. I mean, percentage-wise, this is actually about what Nazem Kadri, people are saying they should have signed Nazem Kadri to this deal years ago. But, years ago, this deal was a much higher percentage of the cap. Just in general, though, for Brock Nelson, first of all, he didn't play very well in Colorado. I didn't think he was a great fit there. I thought when he was going there, I thought he'd be a perfect fit, but he wasn't. He didn't really prove anything to me that would make me think he should get $7.5 million. But if you're the Avalanche, you need to ice an NHL team, and this team is in a dangerous spot right now. They have a really talented group. They have one of the most loaded defenses in hockey, one of the probably a top 10 goalie. They have one of the best players in the world in McKinnon, and obviously they have Makar. But down the middle, they're hurting a little bit, and I think the Coyle pickup and the Nelson pickup didn't help them in the way they thought they would. And now they're going to throw all this money at Brock Nelson, and I don't know why the hell they did. It doesn't make any sense. I'm glad as a Wild fan because Bill Guerin has been foaming at the mouth to try and bring this guy home to Minnesota, and I have not been a fan because I know Billy loves his guys, but this dude is not going to be worth the money, and he's just going to be a pain in the ass. So I'm glad he's not coming to Minnesota, but I don't know why the hell the Avalanche are paying this guy all this money.
I don't know, but you know what? That's their battle to fight. I'm a little dumbfounded by it by myself, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, and again, I touched on it too. People were complaining, well, why couldn't they give this deal to Kadri a couple of years ago? Look, I know they wanted to keep him there. He was a crucial part of their Stanley Cup run. But it just, to me, at the time, it would have been a way higher percentage of the cap. The team was still very good without Kadri. And again, I know they lost in round one after. In fact, what the hell? Yeah, they've won one playoff series without Nazem Kadri. So, I mean, maybe it's impacted them more than I thought. But again, at the time, as silly as it was, it made a little sense. This, to me, just makes no sense. This is a high-risk, low-reward contract. And I guess maybe it's a medium-risk, low-reward contract. Again, the cap hit with the cap going up, maybe not the end of the world. But again, your reward for this is almost non-existent. The high end of this is that he scores, 60 points, and maybe that is worth $7.5 million. I just don't see it.
Well, I mean, you have to look at the bigger picture here too. I say this is still low risk when you look at how deep Colorado is anyway. And now I'm not basing this off of their playoff performance. I'm just strictly basing this off of
what?
On the team on paper. So, I mean, you still have a good team.
I think we're losing you. Yeah, we're losing you a little bit there. I don't know if your internet's dropping off or what, but
I don't know. It might just cut out on your end, but I'll just repeat what I said. I think I'm just basing this off of the team on paper. I mean, they're still overall, they're a good team anyway, so it's not a huge risk going forward. The biggest risk here is financially. I'm not as worried about the performance on the ice from him as I am the cap hit. Wow, dude, words are hard for me today. I'm just going to shut up. I'll be over here.
All right. Well, we'll take a left turn then, and we'll just get off that street. The London Knights win the Memorial Cup over the Medicine Hat Tigers. So I thought, look, London had a great team. I expected that obviously they were going to win the OHL championship, and I figured they'd probably be in the finals of the Memorial Cup. But with Medicine Hat, again, they had Gavin McKenna, who was unstoppable all year. They get Caden Lindstrom back from injury in the playoffs. Like, I thought for sure Medicine Hat was a team of destiny, and the Knights just beat the fucking brakes off them. So congrats to the London Knights. Another Memorial Cup in their back pocket now. And we'll see what happens for Medicine Hat because, I mean, Caden Lindstrom's still there technically, but do the Jackets bring him up? Do they wait another year to continue his development? I mean, if he has a good summer and can put on a lot of weight, I know this isn't a Blue Jackets corner, but I could see a path where he potentially has a great summer, has a good training camp, and makes the Blue Jackets roster. So not only would Medicine Hat lose him, but it sounds like Gavin McKenna is going to go play college hockey too. So the Medicine Hat team could look a little more stripped down in a very short time.
Yeah, I could also real quick. I apologize to anybody if you can hear my cat meowing in the background. He's going bonkers because my wife is on a work trip, so he just wants attention. So I apologize for that if anyone can hear him. I'd say as far as developing him before bringing him up to Columbus, I think, like you said, if he can put on weight in the off season,
he's already a pretty big kid anyways, but you can 10, 15 extra pounds of muscle never hurts when you're trying to make the NHL.
Absolutely. Especially with how physical the game is right now too. But I'm always a firm believer of an extra year of development is never going to hurt anybody.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think the Jackets are in a spot where they're like, we need to bring him up because this is the final piece to the puzzle to make us a cup contender. So, yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and I mean, and Columbus isn't horrendously far from being a cup contender anyway, but I still think before you worry about that, you got to get your goalie situation figured out anyway. But off of that, zero surprise here that London beat the brakes off of them. And I need to make it a habit of actually keeping better track of the Memorial Cup as a whole. But
it's tough to, I mean, with the lives we have to live and the hockey we already have to watch to do this show. I mean, we have to watch so much NHL hockey just to do this show. It's hard to keep up. I'd like to keep up with the AHL playoffs. I'd like to keep up with junior. I'd like to keep up with NCAA. I mean, I'm obviously a Minnesota Gophers fan, but I probably only watched 3 or 4 of their games all season before the Big Ten tournament and the men's March Madness, if whatever you want to call it, the Frozen, or not the Frozen Four, but the men's NCAA hockey tournament. And so it's hard. I mean, you want to cover all these, but I made a point to at least watch highlights of the OHL, WHL, and the Q playoffs, and obviously the Memorial Cup. But it's just hard to take this all in. Plus, again, covering the NHL like we mainly do, and the PWHL.
Well, and I was going to say, I mean, that's the priority there. So it's hard to keep up with all this. Plus, you factor in you and I both have full-time jobs. And I'm a Badgers fan. The only Badgers men's hockey game I watched this year
was the one you went to.
It was the one I went to back in January when they played Michigan. So, and that was actually really cool. I don't know if I talked about this on there, but I was oblivious to what was happening behind me and just daydreaming, scrolling through Facebook on my phone. But my 2 buddies I was with got to meet Chris Draper at that game.
Oh, so you fucked up on that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were trying to get my attention. They tried, but they didn't want to hold him up. But they got a picture with him. They said he was a pretty cool dude. So, yeah, I thought that was cool. But
no, the other issue with watching, especially with junior, is in the United States, it's not broadcast here at all. I mean, the Memorial Cup Final, and I think some of the CHL playoff games were on the NHL network, but it was few and far between.
Yeah,
and so unless you're willing to, sail the 7 seas, so to speak, pirating the games, unless you're willing to do that. It's impossible to really watch these outside of the highlights, so it makes it difficult. And I know Flow Hockey's there, and I don't know if they cover junior. I know they cover like the AHL and the ECHL and all that, but it's kind of a tough test to have. So we try and keep up where we can, but I wish we could go further in depth, but we just don't have the resources or time.
Correct.
All right. We'll go to break here real quick. We'll hear from Xenopucks, and we'll come back, and we will talk about the 2 Stanley Cup Final games that have taken place since our last show. We'll be right back. This is the Fresh Ice Hockey Pod.
It's hockey season, and you're looking to work on your stick handling or maybe even your shot, but ice time just isn't an option for you right now. Luckily, our buddies over at Xenopucks have got you covered. They've developed an elite off-ice practice puck that, in addition to looking like the real thing, is the same size and weight as a regulation hockey puck to give you that authentic feel on the end of your stick. It works better than other off-ice practice pucks on almost any surface, whether you use it on hardwood, carpet, concrete, or even asphalt. Xenopucks glide like a real puck on ice. So if you're looking to improve your game without setting foot on the ice, head over to www.xenopucks.com and get yourself a puck. Check out their merch selection and be sure to follow them on Instagram at Xenopucks.
All right, welcome back. So again, thanks as always to Xenopucks for sponsoring our show. We appreciate you guys. All right, Andrew, we've had 2 Stanley Cup Final games again since our last show. You could argue these might have been 2 of the best hockey games in very recent memory. So let's jump right into it. Game 1. Obviously, this one goes to the Oilers in overtime, but how do we get there? From what I observed, for me, until Game 2, it was probably one of the best hockey games I've ever watched. I thought Draisaitl and McDavid did everything you expect of your, generational all-time great players. Obviously, Draisaitl has the first goal in that game right at the start, and then the overtime winner, and of course 2 beautiful assists from McDavid that game. And I thought Skinner, who wasn't bad in the game, but the goals that went in against him were just bad breaks for him and the team in general. You know, a couple lapses in defensive coverage, the Bennett falling into him on the one, and then of course giving up the power play goal to Marchand right after. I just thought he had a couple of rough breaks, and that's one where you could see a game getting away from a goalie, but he dialed it in and held the fort despite all that, and had a good game for them, and really just shut it down in the third period in overtime. And of course, Kasperi Kapanen had a really good game, and so did Kane. I thought Kane and Kapanen kind of filled the void of Zach Hyman a little bit, where they brought that physical element to the game that Hyman would bring along with his scoring touch. But from what I noticed on the Panthers end, it felt like they were a little overwhelmed. Obviously, they had a pretty good start with the 2 goals early on. And they weren't getting a ton of shots. Then they picked it up in the second period and into the third. But it just seemed like they couldn't keep up. But I want to commend Sergei Bobrovsky. I heard a couple of panelists say that, he looked a little shaky and that he didn't look that great. But I thought 4 goals on 46 shots against. I think he was the only reason that game wasn't like 10-2 Oilers, because it just seemed at times that the Panthers were just overwhelmed. And I don't know if they were tired or what, but it just felt like they couldn't keep up. And I felt like Bob kept them in the whole game, and he was the reason why it made it to overtime and wasn't a blowout. And my final thought is that Kenny Albert on the TNT broadcast with an all-time call on the game winner. Just a really good game.
Yeah, it was a great game all around, and I do agree. I actually was very happy with Bob's performance. That game could have easily been 8-3, no question. My thing is, and I said this to you earlier this week, as far as the Oilers and Bob and going against Bob goes, if you really want to blow him out of the water, you got to elevate the puck against him, because down low you're just not getting it by him. That's where he's shut down goalie is, down low. If you can get that puck up at like shoulder level, go top shelf, he doesn't make a lot of real good saves up high. So that's a big key to success for the Oilers. But with that being said, even with Hyman's absence, Edmonton looks like they're not missing a beat. That they've definitely got a leg up on Florida, I would say, as far as the speed advantage goes. Florida did look a little shaky to start that game off. They did pick it up in the second period and start playing good Panther hockey. But I want to say this, as much as I'm rooting for the Panthers and I believe the Panthers will win, I do not doubt for 1 second Edmonton's ability to win the cup. I truly don't. They are a great team, and both of these games, honestly, have showed that. And Draisaitl and McDavid, watching those guys play is just it's almost like something out of a dream. They are just 2 of the best hockey players to ever play this game. And this series has been, so far, it's only been 2 games, and it's been the best hockey I've ever watched. I even told you after game 1, and I don't know how many people will agree or disagree with this, but I told you, I thought that game 1 was better than the entire cup final last year. Yeah, and I still stand by that. And honestly, the second game too, so far, this is already better than last year's cup final. And now the big thing is they were able to get the win. What was that, Friday night? And now you get to go back to Sunrise.
Well, we'll hang on, because we still got to talk about game 2 yet.
Oh yeah.
So we'll pan back to that.
But regardless, I thought there was almost a legitimate noticeable turning point in overtime where you could just tell Edmonton's winning this game.
That's where I wanted to go with this. Yeah. You felt that shift, especially in overtime. The Panthers came out blazing in overtime, and the Oilers held the fort, and then the Oilers got going. And 2 things. First of all, it felt like the Oilers were going to win that game. It just felt like it. But the other side of the coin was it felt like they needed to win that game. I talked about legacy games before the final started, and I just mentioned it now. It felt like a legacy type game from Draisaitl and McDavid. It really felt like they had to win this game to build on their legacy. If the Oilers win this series, you'll look back at that first game and think, boy, the strangle that these guys had on the game was just unbelievable, and it's part of the reason they've made it as far as they have. And it just felt like that was one that they needed to win for momentum, for their own sanity, for the home fans. But the way the last year's final started for them, it just felt like that was one they needed to have, and they got it.
I agree, and I was going to say, if you're the Oilers, you've got to give credit to your fans. What an unbelievable crowd that they have in Edmonton. Those are some of the best fans in hockey, man. Yeah, there's no other way to put it. They're loud, they're rambunctious. Even when Edmonton was down, they were loud. They were trying to get in Sergei Bobrovsky's head. They're just, what a group of fans, man. It really made the game that much more intense. And I think when you have a rambunctious crowd, it makes it that much more fun to watch as well. So
yeah, that's a tough building to play on.
But I mean, overall, I liked what I saw from both teams that game, except for Florida's shaky start. But, you know, for a goalie like Stuart Skinner, who has a reputation of being inconsistent, I've actually been very impressed with how he's been holding it down for them. Obviously, he's had some soft goals go in, but overall, he looks a lot better than he did last year.
Yep. All right. So the Oilers, survive the kind of, again, those some of those rough goals that they allowed. They survived that. They have a great comeback again. McDavid with the 2 beautiful assists on the tying goal in the winner. It was a great game for them. But game 2 goes to Florida. Brad Marchand double overtime winner. This is exactly the pulse the Panthers were looking for. I can't think of the right word, but this was what they needed to rejuvenate some life. It really felt like, and again, we saw last year, Oilers go down 3-0 and they come back to force a game 7. So it's never over till it's over, but it really felt like if the Oilers won that game that the Panthers were toast, because it just doesn't seem like they could have won 4 or 5 against the Oilers. And now they don't have to. But game 2, again, it starts off guns blazing, a total offensive showcase in the first period. A little bit of undisciplined play on both sides, but more so from the Panthers. McDavid and Draisaitl go to work right away in this game. That McDavid feed to Draisaitl dances on Barkov and dangles Aaron Ekblad. It just the unbelievable pass. I mean, these guys are just like on a mission. And after that goal, I'm like, boy, these guys are going to win this game, aren't they? But both teams were sticking to their brands of hockey. The Oilers went with what worked, the full press, high-speed skating, offensive pressure, just cram it down their throat, don't let them get the puck, attack them when they do. And the Panthers played their brand, though. They stuck to their defensive systems. I know they got burned on a couple of those goals, but I still felt like they mostly played a structured game. It got away from them a little bit at times. I wasn't thrilled about either goalie's play in particular. They both did have a couple of big saves. But it felt like Goliath versus Goliath. And towards the end, the Panthers were pushing. And I'm like, man, they're really kind of keeping the Oilers at bay here. And with 25 seconds left, I was like, this game kind of feels like you could use some overtime. And 8 seconds later, Corey Perry scored to tie the game. And I felt a little bad and like I might have jinxed that one. But the game goes to, first of all, just the pop for when Perry ties the game was unbelievable. But the Panthers, again, for as hard as that building is to play in, the Panthers really held strong. There was great chances for both teams in OT and double overtime. But Brad Marchand, who had that awesome shorthanded 5-hole goal earlier in the game, gets the breakaway and gets the overtime winner. And on a shorthanded goal, you can hang these pictures in the Louvre. An all-time moment for Brad Marchand on the breakaway shorthanded. He's got Connor McDavid right on his tail, but he can't catch him. And on overtime, Marchand's got Draisaitl right on his tail, who couldn't catch him in time to stop it from going in. So Brad Marchand, you talk about legacy games. How about a guy that just single-handedly wills that team to victory against an offensive juggernaut, still doing it into his mid to late 30s. Just a hell of a way to get that series tied up. They absolutely needed that win, and Marchand just has that fucking dog in him, man. There are guys who are playoff players, and he is right at the top of that list. Just an absolute outstanding showing, and without a doubt now you could say the best deadline pickup. Did I lose you?
No, I'm just doing that thing I love doing on the show where I mute my mute my mic, and then I go to talk and forget to unmute it. So I was in the middle of texting my wife as her flight is currently leaving for Florida right now. So, but I just want to say,
going to the game tonight or tomorrow?
No. Well, as of right now, no. I know her and her brother, because her brother lives near Fort Lauderdale. Her and her brother talked about it, and but I don't think so. The cheapest ticket for that game tomorrow in Sunrise is like $450, and that's like last row of the nosebleeds. So now, granted, I was trying to con her into going because she was down there for Game 7 of the Cup Final last year, and I tried to con her into going when the cheapest ticket was like $1,100, but she did not. But anyway, I just want to say Brad Marchand is that's I would argue that's one of the best trade deadline acquisitions of all time. That's well for Florida anyway. He has just looked so good. He gets 2 breakaway goals. And again, like you said, he had Connor McDavid on his ass on the first one and Draisaitl on his ass on the double overtime winner. One thing I have to say is Stuart Skinner, close your 5-hole. And not so much on the shorthanded goal, but that overtime goal, that really shouldn't have gone in, man. That was kind of, I'm not discrediting Brad Marchand, but I feel like Skinner really should have stopped that. But nevertheless, it comes out with the result I want, and now they're tied going back to Sunrise. And while you do get the home ice advantage if you're Florida, Edmonton still plays well in Florida. So this isn't going to be a massive advantage for Florida, I think. I don't think Edmonton's not going to let off the gas. You still got to come out and play that, I don't want to say discipline, but aggressive Panther hockey that they've been playing all season and all playoffs. There is one thing I want your opinion on. Sam Bennett falling on Stuart Skinner. I want to hear your take on this because I've seen so many arguments about it and I have my opinion on it. I want to know what you think about it. Was it dirty? Was it intentional? Was it worthy of a penalty? I want to hear what you think.
All right. So I'll say the same thing for both. Because he had an incident with Skinner in Game 2 that he did get a penalty.
That's what I'm talking about. Game 2.
Yeah. Okay. Well, real quick, I want to say on Game 1. First of all, he is tripped, but he absolutely falls like he got shot back into Stuart Skinner. That was 100% intentional. I was pretty irate that he got away with that. But hey, you know what? You do what you got to do to win in the final, so I can appreciate that. But I thought it was a chintzy chicken shit play. And here's the thing: I thought, with what happened with Skinner in Game 2, again, not 100% on him, but there's definitely some intention there. I agree that it's a penalty. I don't like the way the refs handled it, though. And Eddie Olczyk mentioned this on the broadcast. They never put their arm up for a penalty. They end up calling the penalty after the play's already blown dead, from what I could tell. And I didn't like it. First of all, I'm glad Stuart Skinner was okay because the way he leaned over, he fell back. Bennett falls on his leg, and then Skinner falls back and hits his head on the goalpost. That could have gotten really ugly, so I'm glad he's okay.
Yes.
But Bennett, actually, I can't believe I'm defending this guy. He has a good point to make that they never called a penalty in the initial play. The ref's arm didn't go up. They only blew it dead, I think, as Skinner went down. And then eventually they called a penalty. Now, I will 100% agree that is a penalty. You got to watch where you're standing. I know he didn't do it completely on his own, but you have to know where you are on the ice, and you can't just be falling on the opposing goalie. This has happened enough times with Sam Bennett where we just know it's not an accident anymore. So you have to be a little more mindful, but I can appreciate his case that, hey, if it's a fucking penalty, call it right away then. Don't do this bullshit where you see what happens to the goalie after the fact and then you call the penalty. I don't like that, and I agree with him. And Maurice was losing his shit on the Panthers bench, and I can agree with him that if you're going to call the penalty, great, but call it right away. I think it's intentional. I think we're to the point with Sam Bennett where you know it's intentional, you know it's coming. He does a great job making it look unintentional, but because it's happened so many times, we know it's not. But I understand his gripe where, look, if that's a penalty, fine, but fucking call it. Don't wait and see how hurt the guy is before you're like, all right, well, it's a penalty. And then I told my wife too, when we're watching the game, I said the Oilers are going to cook for their own goalie on this power play. And sure as shit, that was the power play goal where McDavid dances around Barkov and then spins Aaron Ekblad around like a top and then passes to Draisaitl. I mean, that was an all-time great goal. That's a highlight reel. That's one you'll see for a long, long, long time.
That's a lifetime reels. Top 10 goal right there.
Yeah, that was just a crazy play. And yeah, I mean, and when you look at the guys he gets, I don't think Ekblad's the world's best defender, but he's a great player still. And to absolutely make him look like a traffic cone like that was unbelievable. And then to dance Barkov too, who is as defensively responsible as anybody in this game. I mean, you could argue he is. He just won the Selke, which congratulations to him, by the way, on winning the Selke trophy. But yeah, I mean, he made two really good players look really silly, and then it ends up in their net. So I can appreciate, again, the Panthers being upset with the fact that you call that penalty after the fact. I'm not crazy about it either. I am glad they get the call right. But again, just call the penalties as they happen. Don't wait and see what happens. I can't stand this shit with the refs, and we never have enough time on this show to really dive into this, but it's the reality. We know it's intentional with Bennett, to get back to your question. I believe 100% it's intentional, but I am 100% a supporter of his gripe that they didn't call a penalty at the right time. And if you're not going to call it when it happens, then don't,
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, we're on the same page with this. I mean, I'm a huge Panthers fan, but I'm not blind and I'm not stupid. It's pretty easy to tell when shit's intentional. And Sam Bennett does have a history of being a dirty player. And again, I want to echo what you said in that I'm very glad Stuart Skinner is okay. I don't want him to be taken out of this series because I think he's very instrumental in making this series as competitive as it has been. So that's something you just don't. Plus, I don't want to see anybody get hurt anyway. Sam Bennett, you got to know where you are. You need to play more disciplined hockey. Stupid penalties like that are what can cost you games. And fortunately, as a whole, it didn't cost him the game. But one thing I want to say is that I keep seeing people in the comments that you see after every loss for a team as they blame the refs. And we know officiating is horrible, but I also want to point out that Edmonton went 1 for 6 on that power play. And
they had their chances.
Yeah, you don't go 1 for 6 on a power play and expect to win hockey games. I don't know how many times I've said that about other teams this year. When you have that many opportunities, you have to capitalize on them. And honestly, Edmonton's a team that I would expect to be going at least 3 for 6 on a power play.
Now, I will say, I believe, I don't even remember if it was game 1 or 2, but I think it was game 2, where one of their power plays was wiped out almost instantly because Corey Perry took a penalty right after it started. So one of those, but still, now granted, 20% on the power play isn't god awful, but you're right. A team with weapons like that, maybe 50% is a bit much, but you should be right around 27 to 30% on the power play. You should be 2 for 6. And on a good night, you're right, 3 for 6. You have the weapons. You've shown you can be absolutely surgical on the power play. I mean, the power play goal they had was an all-time great goal. Actually, that might have been 4-on-4, was it? Or was that power play? I don't even remember.
No, I'm pretty sure it was power play.
I'm going to go look at the box score. I think you're probably, it was a power play goal. Okay. There's been so many fucking penalties and power plays in this series. It's almost hard to keep track. By the way, shout out NHL for making all these games 8:00 Eastern start time. It's a good thing nobody has to go to work in the morning. Fucking Christ, dude. It's a stupid ass league. Anyways, let's see if I can find I can't even find the power play numbers. Sorry, I'm just being bitter. I can't stand the NHL's TV scheduling. It's terrible.
Well, the other thing I want to say too, in regards to these power plays, all these people complain about all the calls the refs missed. Edmonton still had 6 power plays. Yeah, they're not going to call every single penalty. Number one, this is a Stanley Cup Final, so they're not going to call every little thing. It's no secret. I know the refs are horrendous. That's no secret. It's been that way for a long time. But, I mean, at some point, when you have weapons like the Oilers have, and even like Florida has, you have to capitalize on opportunities, whether you're on the power play or shorthanded or full strength. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
By the way,
go ahead.
Evan Bouchard, I don't know when the fuck he turned into Bobby Orr, but holy shit, is this guy unreal in the finals right now?
Yeah, Bouchard has been great. That's another thing. I mean, the team doesn't look like they're missing a beat without Hyman, which still, I mean, I can only imagine how this would be if they had Hyman right now. And I'm not glad that he's injured, but I'm glad he's not playing.
Yeah, no, and again, it goes to show that's why it's good to have good depth, because look at the back end. When Ekholm was out, Stetcher came in, and clearly you can see with the sample size with Ekholm playing, you'd much rather have Ekholm in, but Stetcher was unbelievably good. And it's the same thing now. Hyman goes down. Connor Brown's, of course, back in the lineup, which I'd like to see a little more from him anyways, but Kasperi Kapanen's come in too, and he's been good. It's all about where you can plug in your depth. Yes, it's hard to overcome the loss of a superstar player, but when you have guys that can come in and play, look at the Panthers too. I've said 100,000 times that Matthew Tkachuk is very clearly injured. Sam Reinhart probably battling something too, because he doesn't have the usual jump in his step. And I thought what was the breakaway he had? I think it was game 1 in overtime. I thought he was going to bury that, and he misses the net. He just doesn't look like he's 100% on his game, and he's a guy who's got that killer ice cold stare in his eye when he's on, and he just doesn't seem to have the same edge. So he may be injured. But look at their depth. That third line I mentioned, they can play like a second line. Marchand, Luosterainen, and Lundell. They've been unbelievable, and Marchand, who they essentially got to be a depth piece again, carries them to victory that game. And that's exactly what you need from these guys this time of year. So to go back to your point about the Oilers, it stinks for them that Zach Hyman's not playing, but they have the depth to fill in the blanks there. Even if it's at the most important time of the year, they have the guys that can do it. So this has been a great fucking series, man.
Yeah. And I mean, it's really one of those where, you really don't know which way it's going to go. All we can do is take a good estimate or educational guess and see what happens, because I will say both of these teams, these last 2 games have shown why they deserve to be in the Stanley Cup Final right now.
I think unless you're a fan of one of these 2 teams, then obviously you want them to take both of these. But as a neutral hockey fan, I'm really hoping for a split in Florida here, because I want this to at least go 6, and I want it to go 7, because I think we all do pretty much. But from a Panthers and Oilers perspective, look, from the Panthers side of thing, and obviously I'll let you speak on this because they're your team, but this is your chance. You escape with the split in Edmonton after, I would say, for the most part, being outplayed in large quantities. But again, you have the Dogs. You can go to battle with the Oilers. And again, you're the defending cup champs for a reason, but you survive in Edmonton. You get the split that you badly need. Now you're going home. You haven't played one home game yet. You got the chance to come home in front of your crowd and take 2 of these and put a stranglehold on the series. So for the Panthers, they have to have that. They've been known for having that ability to smell the blood in the water. They have to double down here and win both of these games. I think the only way, in my eyes, because I had the Oilers winning the series, but I think the only way the Panthers win the series from where we're at now is they must win both of these games in Florida. Not that they're not skilled enough to come back from a 3-1 deficit, or again win a series that's tied 2-2. But I really think for them to have the chance that they need to win the series, I really think they must take a stranglehold and win both of these home games. And for the Oilers, it's kind of the same thing. You have to at least get the split. If you go on 3-1 to the Panthers, they're a blood in the water team. If you lose both of these games, you're toast. You got to at least take the split to regain your home ice advantage and make this a best of 3 where you'll have 2 games in your own building, or potentially 2 games in your own building. So, we'll see where it goes, but what are you thinking as a fan of the Panthers? How are you feeling, and what are you thinking it's going to look like going forward?
Well, I think you worded both of those takes beautifully. A large part of this series going back to Sunrise is going to be, the fans should and will have a big part to play here. And man, I shouldn't say this, but I don't care. Look, I'm just saying, I've been watching this team since they couldn't draw 2,000 people to that arena. I've been watching Panther games in that arena when I was one of the only people there. And now suddenly they're selling out the arena. Look, yeah, there's a lot of bandwagon fans, but regardless of that, you need to be loud in that building. That's the big thing. If you're Florida, you have to get both of these wins. And like you said, if you're Edmonton, you have to get a split. And here's what I want to say on that. If Edmonton gets the split, this series is going 7 games. I guarantee it. However, if Florida gets both wins here, this series is going 5 or 6 games, and that's it. If you want to see a game 7 in this series, Edmonton has to get a split here. And that's the only way it happens in my book. That being said, Edmonton's the team that can do it in my book. I think it's largely going to come down to goaltending again. I think you need Bob to step up and make those big saves. And, offensively, I think the Panthers need to be a little more aggressive on the puck. They're a little, they've been a little inconsistent. And like you said, that they have been outplayed for the majority of this series. And I won't disagree with that. And any logical hockey fan wouldn't disagree with that either. I think that you need to play a little more disciplined as well as a team, not take silly penalties. Remember where you are. This is the Stanley Cup Final. You don't have time to be screwing over your team, going to the box for 2 minutes. don't go out there trying to hurt people. Just play the game you know how to play. This is a very good structured team. You don't need to play dirty to win. And just remember, Edmonton's a fast team. And I mean, if there's one thing we can take away from this series, Draisaitl and McDavid have proved that they are light years ahead of everybody else on the ice. So you have to play smart.
Yeah. And you know what, for what it's worth here too, usually momentum swings are a big part of these series, but from what I can tell, neither of these teams seems phased about where they're at. And by that, I just mean usually when you have a crushing overtime loss or a double overtime loss, because each of these teams has lost a game in the extra sessions, it can be deflating. But the way that they're both playing, I mean, again, they're sticking to their strengths, and again, sometimes you just don't have it to win. You're not. It's the final. You're pretty much not going to sweep anybody. You're not going to usually get swept. It's just one of those things. I didn't see looks from either bench after they lost their respective games that made me think they felt like they were out of this. And obviously that's the sign of a championship caliber team. But normally when you see, and we see it a lot in playoffs, a team has a crushing loss, especially when it's at home, and all of a sudden you're going back to the other team's building and you're like, oh, fuck, this is about to get away from us. I didn't see that from either team. When the Panthers lost game one, obviously they're frustrated, they lose the game, but it doesn't look like they have that 1,000-yard stare like, oh shit, this is going to get away from us quick. And for the Oilers too, a game that you probably could have won. I thought the Oilers had the better chances in the overtimes until that Marchand breakaway. That's one where they're probably thinking, yeah, that got away from us, but you know what? So what? We're back to square one. The series is tied. All we got to do is take one out of them in Florida. So I like the fact that both of these teams don't seem flustered by the moment and it still seems like this can go either way. This is going to be very intense. Like I said, I'm really hoping for a split, but I like the fact that both of these teams seem to not be rattled by this moment, despite the crushing way that both of them lost their games.
Well, here's another thing too, and I said this before the series started, was that home ice advantage I don't think is going to play a huge role here anyway, because both of these teams are great road teams. I mean, Edmonton leading up to this series had only lost 4 games in the playoffs, and Florida had only lost 5. So they're both great road teams. So I think it just shows that they are both truly, truly talented teams. One thing I want to point out, I said this a few minutes ago, whereas if Florida comes out and gets both of these wins in Sunrise, that the series won't go 7 games. And there's part of my reasoning behind this is I was listening to Territory Talk, which is the Florida Panthers official podcast. What's his name? He's the radio guy for the Panthers. Doug. I can't remember his name.
Oh yeah, I can't remember it either. I just saw a clip of him on Instagram earlier with his name, and I still can't remember.
Yeah, I can never remember his last name, but they had Aaron Ekblad on the show, and he was saying, part of our problem was last year we were up 3-0, and the pressure of, okay, we only got to win one more, and we never got to this point last Stanley Cup final, and then we lost. He goes, the pressure was just so immense, and we weren't sleeping, and it got a little bit better through game 4, 5, and 6. It was horrible in game 4, and then it was a little better in game 5, and then it was almost non-existent in game 6. And by the time they got to game 7, they were able to relax. But he was saying, now if we get to that point, the pressure won't be as immense because we've been in the situation and we know what to expect. So if we can get to the point of winning this thing, we should be okay. And I agree with him on that. A lot less pressure to win the cup this year. You've already done it once. Obviously, you want to retain that title, but you've got the burden of we're trying to win this organization's first cup after losing last year. So that's why I think Florida, if they can get both of these, will ultimately come away in less than 7 games.
Yeah, I think you're right on the spot with that. I think not only first of all, if they win these 2, I don't think this makes it 7. I mean, the Oilers are a great team, but that's one where it starts to okay, the reality sets in where you're like, we got to win 3 in a row against these guys. Maybe this might not happen. But on the same side of the coin, again, they were down 3-0 last year and they won 3 straight to get it tied back up. So I'll be interested to see where it goes. But yeah, for the Panthers, this feels like a situation where, given the optics of the whole series, it feels like they must win both of these home games to win the series. At least for me, it feels like if the Oilers get either of these, this is their series to lose. I'm
with you on that 100%. And like I said, whoever wins the cup this year will not surprise me either way. Both these teams are the two most capable teams. And honestly, I think with each game, it's just going to come down to who's having the better night is ultimately what it is. It's such an evenly matched series as far as I'm concerned, as far as the teams go, as far as their depth, their goal. Well, I would argue that Bobrovsky's the way better goaltender, but again, he has his inconsistencies. Stuart Skinner's been hot. So I don't know, man. It could just go either way. But yes, if you're Florida, you have to get both these wins. If you're Edmonton, if you want this series to go 7 games, you got to get a split here.
Yep. So, all right. Well, we'll put a bow on this one then. Like I said, I'm going out of town to visit some family this coming weekend. And then immediately when I get back next Monday, I'm going out of town for a work trip. So we're going to face a little bit of a roadblock here as far as trying to do this show. There is an outside chance. First of all, there's an outside chance by our next show, the Stanley Cup Final will be over. I hope not, but there's a chance.
I hope not.
If all goes well in favor of this show, this will go 7 and we can record with no problems the following weekend. But nothing's guaranteed. So what'll happen if the final ends Saturday, we will probably squeeze out a show Monday night of next week, because my wife and I will be coming home, and we're gonna leave early in the morning when we come back. So when we get back home, I should have most of the afternoon and evening to do a show. So if the final by chance ends in 5 games, we'll do a show next Monday, and we'll just make it work. Because I'll be out of town for work, if it ends in 6. It'll probably be something that waits till the weekend. So probably Friday night or Saturday night of next week. And if it goes 7, then we'll just do a show next Sunday. So it may be a little bit before we do our next show, but because again of the way that I'm going to be traveling, there will not be a show next week. And again, unless this thing ends Saturday somehow, which I just don't see, then it would be next Monday. But if it goes, put it this way, if it goes past 5, our next show won't be until the weekend of, what is that? The 20th, 21st, and 22nd. So if it goes more than 5, it'll be that weekend. So it may be a little bit before you hear from us, but again, life keeps us all busy. I got a lot of stuff going on. And so that's just going to be the way it is. But we will do our damnedest to get a show out.
And I will say too, after we do that show following the Stanley Cup Final, if it goes 7 games, if we do a show that weekend, the weekend after I will not be on to do a show because I will be in Europe for 2 weeks with my wife. So the next show, at least that I would be on, would be the one we probably do right after free agency, I would assume, because we come back the 9th.
Yeah, and we'll clarify this in future episodes too. But yeah, realistically, while you're out of town, because it'll be right around the draft, I'll probably do a draft fallout show, just something solo, just to, button up any news that comes through. And of course, if there's big trades at the draft, there'll be some stuff I address. And but yeah, after that, we'll do our final show. Will probably be July 13th or 14th, depending I don't know when you get back. But
I get back on the 9th.
Okay, so we'll probably do our final show of the season on the 13th. That'll give us plenty of time to get all the big free agency signings out of the way and potential trades. And then that's when we'll wrap up. But yeah, for the time being, our next show more than likely will be June 21st or 22nd, assuming this doesn't end in 5. If it ends in 5, our next show will be next Monday. But we'll just keep an ear to the ground. I really hope it doesn't end in 5 because it's just been some top-level hockey, and I want 7 games of it. So we shall see what happens, but for now, all we can do is buckle up because this next week and a half or so is going to be a wild ride.
It certainly is. Game 3 tomorrow night at 8 p.m. on TNT, so make sure you don't miss it. If you want to write into the show, send us a question, you can do so. Send us an email, freshicehockeypodcast@gmail.com, or contact at freshicehockeypodcast.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, as well as on TikTok at Fresh Ice Pod.
The game broadcast on CBC and Sportsnet in Canada, not just on TNT.
No, just TNT. That's it. But anyway, the series is heating up, and it's going to be a fun ride to the finish. So buckle up, and we will talk to you guys soon.